Present.
Mr. Yates?
Here.
Mayor Barton?
Present.
Mr. Lee's on his way in. He's out working on his way in.
Okay, at this time we're going to do public comment on agenda items, and recently I've gotten some feedback that I guess you call my allotment of time bias, where some people felt that I've given others more time than those. I tried to be lenient depending on what the topic was, but to be consistent, you will have 3 minutes. At the 3-minute mark, you'll be noticed to conclude your remarks, and you'll have 30 seconds. At that point, your time is up. So if anyone has any public comments, please come forward, state your name and address. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the committee. Is this a workshop meeting? It is the first meeting of the month. It's a regular meeting. My second comment concerns Resolution 2019-68, which is on the agenda, but not included in the agenda except to say that it's under construction. I have questions on that, but I understand that
It is going to be struck from the agenda. It's not going to be dealt with.
okay. Then I have no further questions. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Any comments? Okay, seeing none, we're going to close the public comment, and we're going to talk about our 2019 municipal budget. This is the second public hearing. 2019-60, resolution authorizing reading of title for 2019 municipal budget. Do we have a motion? Second?
Second.
Okay, and then I guess we'll do the public comment before we do the roll call, Peter.
That would be, the roll call is to open the hearing.
Okay, open the hearing, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Okay, roll call?
Okay, I just want to say, can we do the resolution, reading the title first?
Yeah, this is the resolution authorizing the reading of the title for the 2019 municipal budget.
Okay. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee? Still not here?
Still here.
He's here.
He just walked in.
Thank you. All right.
Abstain?
All right. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes, a public hearing on public comment. Have a motion to open this to the public.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Abstain?
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Okay. The budget is now open to the public. Anyone from the public have any comments on the budget? Please raise your hand. Mr. Brooks?
Thank you. Stuart Brooks, 78 Moores Meadow Road. I've made similar comments in other workshop meetings, but I'll make them again. I want to address two of the sacred cows, TRS and TAA, and I know that so many elected officials come from those two fine organizations, but I do question how we budget for them. Regarding the TRS, you had the opportunity to direct some, if not all, of the billing revenue into the township's budget, where it could support fire, where it could support any number of other good things, and that was not done. Other townships do it, Tabernacle does not. Roughly $250,000 of income there. That's roughly speaking 4 cents on the tax bill. So I'll say it again, you had the opportunity to address that and you haven't. And I would also add that after adopting the contract with the TRS, there really was no explanation of what your thinking was. Maybe there was good thinking behind it, maybe it was not good thinking, maybe it was thinking that could be talked about and discussed. But it wasn't, even that wasn't put on the record. Regarding the TAA, we pay roughly $9,100 for the commercial liability insurance, medical and accident insurance of this organization. The organization does good work, does important work. but there's no reason it can't be self-sufficient. They give money away in scholarships that are outside of their purpose, which is providing recreation for kids. It's not for providing for higher education for one person who may or may not even be in TAA. I think at the budgetary level, that should be corrected. Secondly, regarding the way that Oprah is handled, I don't see why there's a reason to spend $13,000 for special Oprah counsel. Your professionals, your clerk, your attorney are certainly should be capable enough to address the routine Oprah issues that come before you. I don't understand why there's this rush to spend extra money when the capability to handle it should be in-house. You should be using your resources wisely, not spending more resources to address a problem. And I would add to that, I've noticed that in recent Oprah requests that the township clerk has been typing in requests that come in that she's been typing it into the township's own application. So it's actually taking a valid request and typing it into a new form. I don't know why, and I'd like to understand what that new application is and why it requires the retyping of a valid application into it.
You have 30 seconds to conclude, Mr.
Thank you. But that seems to me to be just one example of resources that are not being used wisely. Just to reiterate, I don't see why a valid request for information would need to be retyped into another form so it could be handled by the administrative staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I guess it will add, will there be answers to these questions, and will the committee be addressing these comments?
I just heard comments. I don't remember hearing too many questions.
I think the comments are substantial enough that they would call for a response. They do question your reasoning and your budgeting. And if you have reasons for the budgeting decisions you're making that are related to those comments, I think it's appropriate that the public hear them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brooks. Anyone else in the public?
Mayor, I'd like to comment on one of Mr. Brooks' points. I don't necessarily disagree with everything that you brought up, but I do want to clarify. I believe the scholarship holders for TAA, in order to be eligible for the scholarships, you have to have been a participant in the program. So those scholarships are going specifically towards students that have been involved in the TAA program at some point. And there's a pretty intensive selection process for that awarding the scholarship. Like when I was mayor and actually liaison to TAA early on in my tenure on the committee, that was one of the pieces that was put together when the scholarships were awarded.
Was that past tense? Was a member of TAA?
In order to, in a lot of cases, you actually age out of TAA when it comes to a participant. So to my understanding, the only persons that were eligible for that scholarship were ones that had participated at some point or perhaps were still involved with TAA during that period where the scholarship was to be awarded. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other comments on the budget? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and have a motion to adopt the municipal budget.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
No.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Okay, ordinances on second reading, public hearing and comments. 2019-5, an ordinance establishing the position of a part-time certified fire inspector. We'll open that to the public. Anyone from the public want to talk about the establishment of part-time fire inspector? Okay. Seeing none, public portion closed. Motion?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Yates? I'm sorry, excuse me, Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolutions 2019-61, authorized cancellation of aged outstanding checks for municipal court. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Mrs. Brandt, Deputy Mayor made second. Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolution 2019-62 approved the renewal of the primary retail distribution license for Murphy's in the Pines, LLC. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolution 2019-63 approved renewal of primary retail consumption license for WWJR, LLC. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolution 2019-64.
Joe, hang on 1 second.
Yes.
Joe's got a different agenda.
Yeah, I didn't get the current agenda.
You got a different agenda than I do.
Yeah.
Was it the last one?
No,
Do we have a copy of
One
the
I had
current agenda?
was put in with May, or, I'm sorry,
Could be June 10th. Yeah.
June 10th.
This was done by copy, please.
Can I read it?
I hope so.
Sure.
Oh,
You got
binoculars.
I can see that plain as sight.
Are those diamonds?
Want me to trade? Here, Joe. Say it, pass that down, please.
All right.
There's a bigger one.
You want the big people?
Well, I like sitting at the small table for Thanksgiving dinner too, if you don't mind.
That's fine. Are those your wife's readers or yours?
No, I figured to match my outfit.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, Resolution 2019-64. Our previous meeting was canceled because of tornado watch and warnings in the area, and I'm sure this would have went through without a problem, but this was for the Strawberry Festival, which was this past Saturday. So it is recognized the signs were out before this was passed, but being what it may, we'll go through the formal process of dealing with this resolution, authorizing the placement of temporary signs in the public right-of-way for the Tabernacle Historical Society. Motion?
Well, if you do remember, Joe, our last meeting was canceled due to a potential tornado, and if anybody can't understand that, then something's wrong.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolution 2019-65, authorized the placement of temporary signs in the public right-of-way for a joint social event with the Tabernacle Rescue Squad and the Tabernacle Historical Society, which is the annual barbecue. A motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Brown? Ms. Brown?
Kim?
Can you hear Ken?
Yes, I'm literally walking through the door. Yes.
Are you voting yes? Did you hear what you're voting on? Are you comfortable to vote yes?
You know what you're voting on?
I was listening.
You're voting on the barbecue. Are you voting yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolution 2019-66, authorized the township administrator to advertise and offer part-time employment in Tabernacle Township.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolution 2019-67, authorized the township administrator to advertise notice of intent request to award a contract under a national cooperative purchase agreement. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolution 2019-68, this one, we're going to strike that from the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Resolution 2019-69, approve the official depository for municipal court accounts. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes.
Thank you.
Approval of the bills for meetings May 28, 2019 and June 10, 2019. Have a motion? Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Brown? Yes. Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Approval of the minutes for the April 29, 2019 regular committee meeting. Have a motion?
I have a question. Why did we skip 2019-68?
68?
Yeah.
We did not have a resolution to support, 68, hold on. Steve.
Someone you struck. So I'm sure 68 was relative to the Tabernacle
Yeah.
license. And there's some question as to whether or not we can facilitate the business owner in that regard. And so we're waiting for them, I guess, to explain how they may be able to utilize our help in that regard. I did look at the statute per being referred to it, and there is a what they call restricted brewery license, and there are restrictions concerning how it may be utilized and how it may or may not be adjacent to a license holding facility. Was my understanding there was some question regarding
Okay,
potential.
that's all you need to say. I thought this was, I wasn't sure if this is a renewal of the license.
This is about the issue.
Okay, very well, okay. Thanks.
We're back to approval of the minutes for April 29, 2019.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, roll call?
Ms. Brown? Yes. Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Discussion for the draft ordinance number 2019, which is an ordinance of the Tabernacle Township and Tabernacle County of Burlington, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 7, Section 12, and Chapter 17, Section 17 of revised general ordinance of Tabernacle Township. I see our zoning officer and construction code officials here, and basically this raises the gross vehicle weight from 12,000 to 17,000 pounds. Before we scheduled this for an ordinance, wanted to find out from the committee, have a brief discussion. Is everyone comfortable where we progress with this at this point in time? We've had several other comments on this.
I can set the table for that a little
Yes,
bit.
if you want, Peter.
Mr. Sunbury worked with me and provided some valuable input in structuring that redraft. The discussion largely surrounded the weights that would be applicable to the restriction, what would be restricted. There was a lot of discussion whether 12,500, 14,000, what have you, would be the appropriate weight restriction. So we did establish the restriction at a much higher level, given that also the information provided by Mr. Boyd and the public discussion on models and what would best suit the intent and purposes of the zoning restriction. I should also indicate that the redraft also restricts one commercial vehicle per property and one trailer per property, and that is included in the current draft, and that shouldn't go lost on the committee. I'm sure that issue will be also raised, but not only was the weight discussed, but the number of commercial vehicles, the number of trailers, and we expanded upon that as well. So we're hoping that it would be at a workshop. We can have a further discussion and potentially adopt it on first reading if we can move forward with it.
Can I get a clarification on, let's say, commercial and recreational vehicles? It would be paragraph D. It says not more than one recreational vehicle or boat shall be parked or stored outside any residential property. Does that mean you're allowed one of each or one of the other?
One or the other, as it's currently written. I'm not suggesting that that's the way it has to stay. I'm just saying, if you're referring to it says, "No person shall park at any time upon any street or any truck, bus, trailer, recreational vehicle, boat, or tractor within any residential district or within the district of a regional growth area or within the Pinelands Village or within any approved major subdivision wherever located in the township, which has a gross registered weight which exceeds 17,000 pounds. This requirement does not pertain to farms wherever located or any emergency vehicles." So that would restrict all of those vehicles in excess of 17,000 pounds. That is the number that was recommended and I think was universally accepted as the correct number under all the circumstances. Then you have to move on to look at the restriction, and the restrictions are talking about vehicles that are less. So anything that would have a gross vehicle weight in excess of 17,000 pounds is completely prohibited anywhere in the township. But under B, yep, on any street or any, yep. "No person shall park at any time upon any street." So again, you can't park anywhere on any street, any vehicle over that weight. And then if you go on to section 2, right? And we're looking at 1712, so we have to be, no, you're conflating the two. The 712 is the parking restriction. That stays in chapter 7, section 12, and that's the parking restriction. We then move on to the zoning restriction in 1717. And that talks about regulating vehicles from a zoning in residential zones. There it states that no person shall park or store at any time any truck, bus, trailer, recreational vehicle, boat, with a trailer or tractor outside within any residential district of a regional growth area or within the Pinelands Village or within any approved major subdivision, wherever located, which has a gross weight which exceeds 17,000 pounds. So again, not only would they be restricted from the street under 712, but they would be restricted from residential zones under 1717. That being said, not more than one commercially registered vehicle and one trailer shall be parked or stored on any residential property within any residential district of a regional growth of Pinelands Village or an approved major subdivision wherever located. So there's your restriction regarding the number. Not more than one commercially registered vehicle and one trailer would be permitted in any residential zone.
My question is, previously, if you stored this vehicle inside a building, you were allowed.
It says outside.
Okay, so that still exists.
Correct.
And most everything else we allow two of, to boats, to unregistered vehicles, and everything else we do is in twos. That's my only question, whether the committee wants to consider that or not.
But we don't do anything with a GVRW greater than 17,000, right?
Not unless you put it inside a building.
Correct, right? Okay,
Okay.
so we're on the same page.
Yeah.
And then right now, and of course we can change it, we can talk about it. Right now, it says not more than one commercially registered vehicle and one trailer shall be parked or stored. Now, with respect to boats, again, if they exceed the 17,000 pounds on their trailer, they wouldn't be able to be stored outside, parked on the road or stored outside in a residential area. We could modify it to permit certain boats outside. We could modify it to permit one or more of those vehicles, but this is the way it's currently drafted. So again, I just want to draw clearly the distinction between the parking restriction in 712, which is why it's in a different section, and that's something that the troopers could utilize potentially. And then 717, which would be Mr. Boyd's purview, and that would be both restrict absolutely anything with a gross registered weight above 17,000 pounds, unless it's stored inside. And then you get one boat and one trailer that are commercial, one commercial vehicle and one trailer. Doesn't say anything about boats outside.
Get down here, Peter, says that recreational vehicles and boats may be parked outside only in the side or rear yard. That's under E.
That's why I said, yep, recreational vehicles and boats may be parked outside only in the rear or side yard. But again, that would be under 17,000 pounds.
But my question is are we limited to one recreational vehicle or one boat?
The way I have it written is you get a boat or a recreational vehicle, not both, but we
Well,
can change it.
I was saying, I think we need to change it, because a lot of people have an RV and they'll tow a boat.
Right now, if you take the tag off your second commercial vehicle, your second trailer, you're allowed to keep it on your property, but if you leave the tag on it overnight, you're not.
Well, I think taking the tag off is just a way of circumventing it. I'm not sure that that would help you. But you'd have one commercial vehicle and one trailer, and either a recreational vehicle or a boat, but not both. Of course, I don't make the rules, I just write them. So however you'd like to have it, you just let me know.
I think we should allow both.
Not more than one recreational vehicle.
So Joe, if we do boats, do we also talk about size of boats?
Well, think about it. During the summer months, you don't see many boats in people's yards. They're all docked. It's when the season ends and they're fair weather fishermen. They're not, they don't like the cold weather, so they don't want to take the boat, leave the boat out. And go striper fishing in December. But that's usually when you'll see the boats in people's yards.
So again, we're restricting the weight of a vehicle. Do we talk about the size of the boat? I mean, suppose somebody parks a 65-foot boat in their yard, 48-foot boat in their yard.
Well, people have done that.
That's a boat.
The thing that's a challenge is the fact that you've got parts of our town that have historically done whatever they needed to do, and a lot of people that built the town were working jobs and had trucks and tractors and trailers and all kinds of stuff in the yard. But now we've got different types of neighborhoods to where you have folks that live in one area that don't want to have a boat or an RV in their yard, and there's other ones that don't care. And we can't expect Tom to run around measuring boats and weighing vehicles. I mean, it's a nightmare, in my opinion. The thing that I was concerned about was on letter F under 17.7, recreation vehicles or boats shall not be used for temporary or permanent residential purposes. Let's say I have a fire in my house, God forbid, and in lieu of having a construction trailer brought in, can I utilize my motorhome
I would say
for 6 months? Because according to this, I can't.
Right, you can't without getting a variance from the zoning board. You would have to go to the zoning board to use it for a residence.
For a construction trailer, Tom, is that,
Permitted.
that's permitted? So if you were using it as an office for the construction, you would be permitted, but if you were using it as a residence, you'd have to go to land development board.
So I could still utilize, my question is, can I still live in my motorhome while my house is being rebuilt?
No,
Getting permission from the zoning board.
Okay.
Or the land use.
And filling out an application
Yeah.
and paying the fee. Well, that's fine.
And that's the safety valve for, if we were to decide that it's going to be either one commercial vehicle or one boat, the safety valve is if you want both, you go to the zoning board and you get a variance for both. Where do we talk about the size of the boat and go up to a certain point? Boats are pretty easy because usually the name of the boat includes the number. Like if you see a 248, it's a 24.5-foot boat.
Sure. Mr. Boyd, did you want to have some input? The critical issue right now is one recreational and/or one boat, or boat, or both.
Just currently, we have 2 boats that are permitted, so that would be something for the board to consider. And the other thing is that I know we changed it to commercial vehicles. Just be cognizant of the fact that a commercial vehicle isn't necessarily a truck. My son-in-law works for a major insurance company, drives a Chevrolet Malibu with commercial tags on it. So part of the rock that I'm sort of stuck between, and Mr. Lee, I certainly appreciate your comments, is that when neighbors get a bee up their backside, as my father-in-law would say, or manager or the neighbor, they would call on him and say, you have a commercial vehicle of a Chevrolet Malibu in your yard and you can't have it. So, you know, it's just, I agree with your sentiment that this town was built by a lot of those type of folks. I also understand that there was concern about businesses, that we don't want that, and I think that that could be dealt with as well. But I know that currently boats are 2, abandoned vehicles are 2. So just for consideration for you folks. Thank you.
Tom, do you know where we permit 2 boats in the ordinance? Do you know where that is?
Would have been 1717.
I believe it's 1717 currently.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but
Do you know if we identify size of boats in there?
we do not.
Okay.
So these are the issues. I mean, this might be a good spot to end the discussion tonight, knowing that we're going to bring it back at a workshop. We're going to hammer this out. Everybody have an opportunity to think about the issues as we frame them today, and then hopefully come to a consensus at the workshop and move forward with this. Get it done.
Okay.
So thanks for the discussion.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Okay, reports, Mr. Dozen.
Just a couple updates. The road program, the paving is completed on Pat Place and Carranza. They're still working on some of the driveway and shoulder work, just restoration work, and the striping is scheduled to be completed this week. An update from DOT on the discretionary grant that we submitted for Carranza Road. What I'm now being told is that at the end of this month, or actually the beginning of July, that grant application is going to be sent up to the legislature for final decision. So that would be a good time to contact your neighborhood assemblymen and senators to support that application, and we will, we'll pursue it from our end, but I think it would be valuable for municipality and elected officials to do so as well. I'm not sure how fast that's going to be acted on. We're in the summer, so there's going to be recess, and there's an election coming up, so I'm not sure exactly what the schedule is. But DOT said they are sending it up to the legislature for approval and funding. Also, somewhat related, the next round of funding for DOT grants has been announced. So we've been working with Doug on a plan for a recommendation for a plan for the grant application. Right now, we're thinking Oak Shade Road again, so we can finish it. We started it this year, we're going to be constructing it, but we do have a grant for the first part of that. We should be able to finish it and maybe have a little bit left over, so we might want to add another road as well to the application. So we could apply for more than we get, but it's better to apply for too much and get a little bit less and trim back the project. And two, we're thinking about Prickett's Mill, north of Bedford Lakes Road, to include that in the application. We don't need a decision tonight, but I would like it, the application is due July 19th, so we do need to make a decision so I can have some direction by the next meeting on June 24th. So we can have it on the agenda and I can get some direction on that. That'll give us a couple of weeks to get the application. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Dozen. Mr. Kramer?
While we're talking about roads, I wanted to let you know that the Public Works Department finished the crack sealing program for the spring. We're able to get 11 roads sealed this year. Everything went fairly well, a few delays with the rainy weather, but overall it went well. Also, our environmental consultant, Doug Stewart, contacted me this afternoon to let me know that the DEP will be back in town with a contractor, EnviroTrack, to do well testing from the Joanne cleaners spill from years ago across the portion of Bedford Farms towards Carranza Road. They will be out doing testing in the monitoring wells. If any resident has any questions, please contact Town Hall and we'll put you in touch with Mr. Stewart, who's going to answer the questions for you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kramer. Mr. Lyon?
Thank you, Mayor. The Moore Road demolition is imminent, I think. We're waiting for just a 10-day notice period to pass, and Tom, I think you have all of your instructions, and we expect to be out there and have that down relatively quickly, I think probably before the next meeting.
No.
No? What's holding that up?
The Sheriff's Department has insisted on a 30-day,
30-day, I thought it was 10-day.
30-day, and we are scheduled for mid-July as of right now.
Okay, so there's the update.
What's the address on that?
14.
14?
It is 14?
Yes.
And Doug, you have a contractor ready for that, right?
We have a contractor ready and waiting, yes.
And we've been coordinating with them and the Sheriff's Department and Mr. Boyd. This is a unilateral demand by the Sheriff's Office in the 11th hour with respect to this 30-day notice provision. I suppose out of an abundance of caution from their counsel, but nevertheless, it is imminent and should occur relatively immediately after the expiration of that time period.
July 15th.
Everything's in place.
For July 15th.
Yeah, for July 15th. All right, very good. Other than that, I'll save my time for executive session. Thanks for the discussion on the weight restricting ordinance.
Okay, committee reports, Mr. Yates?
Yeah, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Sunbury on his victory. But in the meantime, do you think we should be looking for someone to fill the position of emergency management? So this way there's a smooth transition in January.
I believe Mr. Sunbury, if possible, would like to serve both positions, and Peter, that would be a legal question for you. And Christie would have to serve at this committee's pleasure. Is that a possibility? Is there a conflict within being a committee person and also the OEM coordinator for the township, and do you need time to look at that?
There's a statute called the Compatibility of Office Statute, and it would require me to look into that. I think that there may be some mention in the OEM statute itself. I'd be happy to consult with Mr. Sunbury, look at that statute, and come to a conclusion. From a legal standpoint, I imagine that's what I'm being directed to do. Is that correct?
Everybody okay with Peter?
I'm fine with that. I'm just trying to nip the potential problem in the head.
Okay. Thanks for putting it up there.
But
Anything else?
what I'm getting at is if he's not able to serve both positions, I'd like us to be proactive. So this way, come January, we're not going, okay, we need an emergency management coordinator.
Understood. Anything else? Okay, Commander Lee?
I had a couple things. I just came from the school board meeting, so I apologize for being delayed. Things are continuing to evolve at the school district. As you recall from back in May, we've heard from Superintendent Robbins regarding the budget cuts there. I'm learning of the progress of the letter that we had committed to write in conjunction with other mayors from other municipalities in terms of supporting the efforts that the school districts were going through in terms of pleading their case to the state. Where do we stand with the letter?
Mr. Robbins sent me a letter. I replied back to him by voicemail. We haven't communicated since then. The letter was quite lengthy, and so we haven't agreed on what that letter should say just yet. I have to get back with him and decide what we want to include that letter. It was a lengthy, detailed draft that he had put together, and I believe in that he was inviting folks to a public hearing or a meeting to talk about the issues with the school.
Okay. On the 7th of May, I attended a meeting with the 9th District legislators, specifically Assemblyman Rumpf and Assemblywoman Gove, with Rhonda Cutts, who represents the union, Vicki Shoemaker, the president of the board, Glenn Robbins, and Connie Stewart, who's the business administrator for the Lenape Regional District. And we discussed issues, but one of the things that did come up was the letter that we haven't got completed yet, which I think is important to get that done. I'd like to see the draft, if that's possible, the draft that you're referring to. the one thing that the district has done is put together a petition, which is on the 9th District legislative page, which essentially it's a letter that's from the 3 members of the delegation that outlines the concerns that we have regarding that the representatives have regarding the school district budgets, and it refers to several districts within the 9th and talks about the importance of getting these issues resolved. But that particular petition is currently on the 9th District legislative site. Anyone can go on it. It's very simple. You can sign your name to it. They send you a confirmation email back just to confirm that you actually were the one that had sent the request. But what it does is it provides the leadership at the 9th District to be able to take it to Trent and to say, I'm representing a municipality that has such and such number of residents that are concerned about this. I will say that they indicated that within the last 8 or so years, they have received more inquiries and more communication from residents of Tabernacle than any other town within their district. So the folks that are here in town are certainly paying attention to who their legislative representatives are. What I wanted to also do, and Joe and I, we discussed this early last week, is talk about Verizon. And I wanted to give the committee and the public specifically an update on where things are. This map represents the roads where Tabernacle is going to be receiving fiber. And it was a letter that we received back on March 26th, which I've referred to numerous times in different discussions. But we need to make a decision in terms of where we're going from here. What this map clearly shows, and I apologize for not being bigger, but this shows the areas of where FiOS is coming to Tabernacle. In June, we're looking at, I need my glasses, Joe.
Want my balloons?
No. Powell Place Road, also sections of South Park on Tabernacle Chatsworth Road. Speedwell is getting it in June. October, we're looking at Forkneck Road. We're looking at Carranza Road, Moores Meadows Road, Chatsworth Road. In December, we're looking at areas that are closer to this direction, Medford Lakes Road, Patty Boca Road, Zimmerman Road. And then in March, we're looking at some of the neighborhoods over towards Shadow Oaks and also in Powell Place. Here's the problem. The problem is that 206 is right here, and this plan that Verizon has does not address anything on the western side of 206. Now, in my opinion, this is a nice start. We did this with 35 residents that made a financial commitment to get fiber. It's the only reason we even got Verizon here. It was about a 5-year process. But my personal thought is that this section 206 ought to be built out, because based on the BPU ruling 4 years ago, perhaps, and Pete, correct me if I'm wrong on the date, but roughly in the 4 to 5 year ago range, the ruling from BPU clearly indicated that if the BFRR requirements were met, which meant people like Sam and I actually were ones that filled applications out and paid money, if those requirements were met, Verizon was mandated to build out the entire municipality, not just the sections of where they were not able to, we weren't able to have broadband internet. So it's exciting that we have areas that are going to be done. Flyatt Road, it's coming to Flyatt Road, it's coming to Carranza, because those residents are going to have options. Mark Lanier was complaining to me a week or so ago because Verizon was in his town putting all these flags out and couldn't mow his grass. Well, the reason is because Verizon's coming to do markouts. And he's got an option. He's got Comcast and he's got Verizon an option. But my question is, do we want to essentially ignore the western side of 206? I'm not sure that we do.
Well, if I heard you right, you're saying that Verizon is obligated.
Yes.
So if they're obligated, then we should fight to have them do the whole town.
That's a conversation we probably should have in executive session, which I'm going to ask for some time tonight to discuss that option. If the committee's in agreement with that.
Yeah.
Are we okay doing that, John?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you're talking about bringing a claim against Verizon to compel them to build out the town under the existing law, given the facts. And certainly, they've thus far not indicated their willingness to do so, and they've been dragged kind of kicking and screaming to the table by Steve with his good diligent work on behalf of those rural residents. So it will be discussed under the moniker of potential litigation, Tabernacle Township versus Verizon. So we could discuss that, yes.
This map I'm going to leave with the clerk's office, so it'll be eligible for being open, and also a copy of the letter from the 26th of March from us to Sylvia Vecchio, the State Government Relations Representative. This is, I believe, Dan, you already have a copy of this. And I'll leave this for with the clerk's office if this wants to be open. It's no problem whatsoever. Yeah, absolutely. The nice part about it is it gives us 893 houses, and we didn't have coverage for 42 houses, but there's a lot of areas that are along Old Indian Mills Road that have the DSL, or what Verizon would call DSL, but it clearly is not a viable option. They recognize that by building out Old Indian Mills Road, and I forget the addresses along Old Indian Mills Road, but it's pretty extensive. But the point is that I think in my opinion, if Verizon is obligated by law to build out the municipality, they'll build out the municipality, but again, that's a discussion we need to have collectively as a committee. I also want to congratulate Bob Sunbury for his vote talent primary. I'm hopeful things go well for my colleague, Mr. Yates, but I did want to clarify one point. It was inadvertently reported in the Pine Barrens Tribune I was retiring. That's clearly not the case. I elected not to submit a petition back on April 1st because I wanted to take some time away from this responsibility, this part of my life, to work with my family. My youngest son is graduating 8th grade next week, which I'm very excited about. My oldest son is graduating from Seneca High School next year. When they came here, they held my Bible, and they were about as tall as the table. And in addition to that, I've got to focus some time on my family's business and my family's operation. But I clearly am not going anywhere. I may run again for this committee seat next year. I might run the year after that. I might run for a freeholder seat. I might run for the school board. But I've got a true commitment to our community, and I'm just simply taking what I would call a sabbatical and taking some time off, at least from this election cycle, to focus on things that I need to worry about in my personal life right now. My family is right now a priority, as well as my cranberry operation. So there are components that I want to continue to do. I will continue to do, certainly throughout this year. I spent some time in Trenton lately, working on behalf of the township in addition to the Verizon piece, and paying attention to what's happening at the school board, so I'm certainly not going anywhere immediately. But I want to clarify, I'm definitely not retiring from the committee or retiring from public service. That's all I have.
Thank you, Stephen. Amendment Moore?
Yeah, question. Kareem's a road. Probably be focused at Pete. If in the event, if we don't get this grant to complete it, because that would be a shame not to get it done. Because I've been told many times, we can't use the bond money because it's a split to the municipality. Since we maintain it and take care of it, what's the chances of Tabernacle taking over the jurisdiction of the road? Just the actual asphalt itself. So if we do have to use bond money, or could we, is there any way we could do that? Just the road infrastructure itself.
Why do you want to own the road?
Well, it would have to involve Shimon. They would have to, consent to that, obviously. With the possibilities, if there was consent by Shimon in order to sort of make it the responsibility of Tabernacle in order to facilitate its completion.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at those options along with Rodney to see what the financing would be. Certainly it would involve some type of consent with Shimon. I mean, it's their half of the road in their township.
Are you talking about moving the municipal boundary to include the entire right-of-way in Tabernacle? Is that what
That's what they do.
Well, I was just asking, just however it would take to where we could use bond money to finish it.
Grant money you're talking
Yeah,
about.
well,
Grant
no, actual bond money from the township.
bond money.
Sammy wants the whole road. Sammy wants Grant's road to belong to us. And he wants to use grant money to do it.
I think to do that, you would have to adjust the municipal boundaries so that the entirety of the right-of-way is in
Correct,
Tabernacle
right, so you got a
Township.
50-foot right-of-way from the center of the road.
Right.
Right, so you would be we would have to ask,
Shift the municipal boundary 25 feet, you'd have to ask, work with Shamong to, if you wanted to pursue that, and then it would just be a boundary shift, which,
Because I just been running some stuff through my mind, you know, because the road got done to that point, it's a shame not to just finish it. You know, if this grant money dries up, we don't get it, instead of tailoring it for a lot of years. I know it's the split boundary, it's been that way forever, that's the municipal line. But I don't know if there was some way that we could just take over the actual, you know, right-of-way of the road. You know, I don't know how that legally works, so I'm kind of stepping out there.
it's adjusted the municipal boundary, so it can be done, it's done all the time.
Since we maintain it anyway, Tabernacle. So if we say we don't get grant money to complete Carranza Road, if something dries up, the funding goes elsewhere, we don't get it, Carranza Road may sit for 10, 15 more years, 20 more years. This way we could actually use bond money like we do any other infrastructure.
yeah, but personally, I think we'd be opening up a can of worms, because now how would that directly affect shared services? With percentages?
Yeah, I don't, that's why I'm asking the question, because I don't really know.
Well, it's like Sammy's saying, I mean, if we're basically plowing the road, maintaining the road, well, we're also doing Shamong's house. So that falls underneath shared services. Am I correct, Doug?
We don't have any formal agreement with Shamong. Shamong tends to take care of more of Tuckerton Road from Fork Neck to 206. What they do, they get there first, no priorities. Our priorities are to go the other way. So in snow plowing and that type of portion, yes. In mowing, they tend to get to Tuckerton Road before we do, and probably over the course of the year, they do 3/4 of the mowing of that road versus us doing it a quarter. So it's sort of been an informal
Well, like you're saying, when we paved Tuckerton Road, as far as my opinion, Shamong benefited greatly because they had more residents that traffic that road than we do.
Well, we did that one, we both put in grants at the same time and
Correct.
and divided it 50/50.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, if you look at the developments that Shamong has compared to the actual number of residences we have on
Yeah.
Tuckerton Road, Shamong benefited greatly.
They have larger numbers on the road
Yes.
consistently than
Yes.
we do.
I'm just looking at any option we can, you know. Hopefully we'll get the grant, but if we could beef the grant up as much as possible.
It becomes
you know.
the same situation I have on Whitwood Drive between Vale and Burr. We own the whole right-of-way. I don't own about 6 houses in there that are all in Shamong County. We own some at the beginning, we own some at the end, in the middle, on one side of the road. They're all Shamong residents, but we own to the right-of-way.
So are you plowing it or are they?
We are. They plow Burr, we plow, you know.
We have the same situation.
We have the same situation. We own the whole road, although we have a portion of residents that are only Shamong residents.
I mean, Dan, how much are we really talking about?
6/10.
The length of it,
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and check, but it's not the entire length.
Same as 6/10 of a mile.
I think it's
Tuckerton
six,
to
I think it's
Tuckerton.
6/10 to
Yeah.
Moore's Meadow, I believe. I think.
It's Tuckerton to Tuckerton if you don't move along.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I caught this.
So,
Dan, did we spend about $248,000 to do almost 50% of the road already?
that was.
Well, it's not 50% of the road, we're heading on the way up to
A little
to
under,
Moore's Meadow, but we still got a ways to go.
we're about a little less than 50% towards Moore's Meadow right
Okay, and that was about 248, though? Okay, so you're looking at $500,000 for the whole project.
now. And we've got another mile past
Not to
Moore's
go
Meadow
to-
Road.
Not if you're gonna take all of
That
Carranza.
goes before Shamong goes off onto the dirt road. So,
Anything else, sir?
I'm not sure I care if, in all honesty, I don't think it's a bad idea to at least look into see whether Shamong would be interested in giving that up, because we benefit more because of the fact that it's where it's the direction it's headed. I think it's worthwhile asking Shamong just to at least float the idea, and I'm sure they will not care because they'll benefit from from us paving the road, if we have the right of way extended and belong to us, at the end of the day, it's benefiting more of our residents anyway. And it eliminates a jurisdictional problem with having to pave the road. It fixes it, actually.
Tabernacle, correct me if I'm wrong, Doug's always taken care of it since my existence that I've recollect.
32 years I've been here, we've taken care of it
Yeah.
most of the time. I won't say always, but the majority of the time.
That's it.
Deputy Mayor Brown?
I just want to apologize for being a little late. I got a little hung up with something. Sorry.
Anybody else? Okay, last month we hosted the third grade classes here. I want to thank Natalie and LaShawn and third grade teacher Ann Franzen and our former committeeman and Mayor Emeritus Rick Franzen for his help with it. It was pretty neat. It was the first time I've done it. I know others on the committee have done it. And we actually had a young man here who was part of a third grade class who is now the manager of the pop shop in Medford. So he was here to also greet the kids, which was pretty interesting. Also, I did meet with the mayor of Chemung and their administrator to talk about Carranza Road, and they are banking on that grant. I did ask them to contact their 8th district legislator to push that grant along, and then we'll do the same thing as it comes into July. We'll do the same thing with the 9th district and see if that grant can go through. If that grant does not go through, Chemung does not have Carranza Road on their radar anytime into the near future. Also, we had our Memorial Day parade, and Mark Lemire was busy wedding his daughter off, so he was not here that day. So Rick Franzen filled in as the MC, and we had great weather. And I just got a thank you card the other day. It was a very simple thank you card. It just said, "Thank you, Edwin Mikulowski." I ran into Edwin by chance about 2 months ago, 3 months ago it was actually. He was over in Elwood Estates, and I was visiting someone over there, and he came out and we talked, and I found out that he was a World War II veteran, and that he served in France, and he also was in occupied Japan after the bombs was dropped. He actually he was at ground zero after the bomb was dropped. And he's 94 years old. He's a Tabernacle resident. He came out and allowed us to honor him. He wore his dog tags, was all dressed up, was all excited. We had the Warriors Watch Motorcycle Club, went over and met him. They gave him a challenge coin, a certificate, and the Tabernacle EMS brought all their gear and bells and whistles with them and woke up the neighborhood, and he was quite surprised at the welcome that we gave him. And Steve, thanks your group also. That Sunday, Medford had their parade, and they Tabernacle EMS picked Mr. Mikulowski up, took him over to Freedom Park, and from there delivered him to the VFW Hall, and he enjoyed a meal with the commander, vice commander, who were both Tabernacle residents, and they saw to it that he was delivered safely back to Tabernacle. So I'd say we made a great impression on one of our heroes, and he was very grateful. Other than that, that's all the reports we have. We're going to go into closed session. Peter, you want to talk about our closed session and add the fact that we're going to be talking also about the
I asked the committee to adopt a resolution allowing us into executive session to discuss litigation about Fran Brooks versus Township of Tabernacle, docket number BURL 1048-18, and also separate GRC complaint, Fran Brooks versus Tabernacle Township 2019-81, pursuant to Mr. Lee's request to also discuss potential litigation involving Tabernacle Township versus Verizon as it relates to the fiber optic build-out, which is proposed and under the BPU regulations.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're going to go into closed session. Everyone's welcome to stay here. We'll go downstairs. And we'll begin the meeting when we return.
Yeah.
Quick, got a kid up at 9:30. Wow, my wife can pick him up. It's his age grade. But he's probably gonna do the same thing.
Pretty nice. I just want to get started.
We're starting right now. First ever.
Just let you know,
Actually, they've got two pieces of So there are three things to discuss. At this point, I'm turning my power against
Many more neighbors homes, I mean, it's much more. I think that's where they want to go.
Yeah, that's
I don't know if I would take advantage of it.
Okay.
I do hate camp contest.
Yeah. Okay, so walk me through that. Do I, shutting down the video recorder, yeah, do I simply hit the start stop button?
Just on my table.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Security. I mean, so it's a little package.
Don't really care, do you?
not really. You do know.
Joe took them down with I set them down with I figured one of you had some spare time while you listened or signed Steve. I set them down with him thinking that during, you know.
You could do it then?
Yeah. Now, did he do it? I don't know.
Because you know how it is when you're the new guy, you can stack that thing.
Actually, the stack wasn't too bad.
You wait, boy?
He's ready to pick blueberries tomorrow.
Yeah, he is. He's not, what do you got, how many more days of school left? But it's all half days.
Yeah, from here on out, next week, Monday is my last day. What's that?
What day's
Monday.
graduation?
Yeah, it's Monday.
Monday.
Yeah.
What is Monday?
Yeah. Not this Monday, but next.
I'll check on this Megan.
Yeah, they are.
Makes sense, either.
Oh, it's not Kim.
What?
Yeah.
It's Seneca?
Oh, no, for.
Seneca's
Oh,
Monday,
that's-
I know when graduation
I
is.
suppose so. That's conflicting with baseball. I'm really getting pissed. It is.
There's a lot of work that goes into that graduation.
And then
yours.
Yep.
I figured things that's gonna get back home.
We did,
I did indoor bound. I wanted to do Manzi, but I'm scared of the run through.
Yeah, the fact that Seneca is Monday.
It's real frustrating.
I didn't even come back from Monday.
Without.
Back when they figured out the big in front.
But wasn't it the year tomorrow?
That's things.
Well, if you're gonna do that, take another day off somewhere else, maybe Tuesday.
What's with mine?
I did I decided on the record stuff on Friday.
Dude, there's not one kid who wants to come back to school for one day.
See, I thought it was going to rain. I mean, it was going to get rainy, so I said, I know it's going to happen. Then they were going to get that rain again. So I thought,
There's no more rain coming in tonight?
I guess people.
You better also
He said, put her on. So I said, about third, I said, you guys have about Sunday morning, 5:30 for the week.
that bill went in the
Really? Not to start
Tell
quite.
it over there.
Need Joe to sit down.
That's what waiting for.
What time, the thing done at 9:30?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Get his attention, get the man over here.
Don't have any idea.
Your parents coming?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 5 of you.
Yeah, mother-
That's 6 of you. Got your sister.
yeah,
7 kids,
yeah.
8,
Yeah,
9.
dude, well, she wasn't doing it for this one, but I said, let's get
Are you going to resolution?
Alright, so let me get rid of this.
No, I never got the meeting.
Tomorrow.
She got it running around,
Is Joe coming?
setting it up.
Send up this thing.
I'm sure hoping some kids are
I'm talking about.
We gotta look. I gotta look.
Just follow it so quickly.
I think you gotta send out a full size.
Literally.
Budget again.
pretty
Then
big
that way
kid.
it's the whole thing
Was he
back
just
stand.
a bystander or was he part of?
What's going on?
Yeah.
Is the district doing
I
anything?
did give you that on the night that we were here for the tornado. And
Everything. Such turmoil right now.
I watched closely that he was getting taken
He's
care of.
waiting for Peter.
They got it.
There's nothing to do. It's in good news.
You don't want to go running over.
Don't worry, I texted my wife, said that didn't look promising, so I was gonna make the pickup. She was hoping though.
You don't have to wait for me.
That's what we said.
Are you ready, Sean? Okay, we're back in session. Public comments? Mr. Brooks?
Thank you, Mayor Bartlett, Stuart Brooks, Coors Meadow Road. I'd like to follow up on some comments that Committeeman Moore raised about Carranza Road and finishing that up. As you know, my wife and I have been here often commenting on starting and finishing Carranza Road. But I heard today something I hadn't heard ever before, and that was that there are issues, I gather legal, regarding spending bond money on improvements to Carranza Road, meaning the 6/10 that remains. I'd like to know, what are those legal issues? I'd also like to know, can they be resolved by entering into some kind of agreement, a jurisdiction agreement with Shabang, short of changing the boundary line between the two townships? And there wasn't a real discussion of that in the discussion that was initiated before. And I'd like to hear more about that. The other option that was raised for completing Carranza Road is, of course, getting a grant. I'm hopeful that when DOT announces the grant, that the legislature will announce the name of Tabernacle and we'll live happily ever after. But I'm not so sure that that's going to happen. I looked over the application that we submitted, and I was surprised to see that Tabernacle asked for roughly 1/4 of the state's entire budget. budget for these grants, the infrastructure grants. Typically, from my experience, the budget amount is $7 to $10 million. I think we asked for $2 million. I was also disappointed in the quality of our application. There's so much that can be said to put the best foot forward for why that road needs to be finished. I could list a dozen points, and I'd be happy to do it. But just a few. A, we need money to complete the road that the state has already invested $250,000 in. That was never made clear. It's a farm-to-market road. The state wants to support agriculture. That's not in the grant. It's a historic road. That's not in the grant. There are no photos in the grant. There's no discussion of why maintenance has been so difficult over the last 30 years because the jurisdiction is split. There's no physical description of how bad that culvert is. And I'm sure that could be described in engineering terms, and how that condition is so substandard. There's so much more that could be put in that grant that hasn't been put in that grant. And if we decide to apply for a second grant, I would strongly suggest that it be a quality application, that we put our best foot forward and make it the best grant possible. Oh, I'd also say, the grant does ask, grant application asks, are there any state facilities there? Our grant says, yes, there's one. In fact, there are two.
You have 30 seconds,
So,
Mr. Brooks.
a better job has to be done. The other comment I have has to do with a practice I mentioned regarding LaShawn's copying of Oprah's into the new form, and there's reference to I guess a website, admin@govpilot.com. And I'd like to know what that's about, why we're doing that, what that site is. There are lots of reasons why people wouldn't use the township form. I'm not sure why we're trying to squeeze things into the township form. I'm not saying it's good or bad, at least not at this point. I'm just trying to understand it, and I'm hoping that you guys can clarify.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you.
Anyone else in public comment? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address, please.
Joe Eager, 49 Sleepy Hollow Drive.
Okay.
Just want to hand this out for reference. So we're the second owners of the property. We have a retention pond directly behind the house. And since December, we've been pumping nonstop about 1,000 gallons of power from underneath our house out to the curb, which goes back to the retention pond, goes back under the house, back to the curb, and so on. So it's an exercise in insanity, to say the least. We've had above record rainfall, I recognize that, but I have to say that since Seneca Woods was developed, everything has changed. So I'm not even sure if maintenance, by the way, I did ask Doug Kramer to send a crew out, he did, which right away, inspect it, but I understand the township's supposed to maintain that retention pond. It's not draining whatsoever, and you're not supposed to. Who's this?
Actually, it's yours, but to be honest, it is part of the original subdivision, and the commercial business out front has the requirements to maintain all three of those basins.
Murphy's Market. Okay.
I did not know that when I originally talked to you. Did that through some research into the records.
Okay, I appreciate that feedback. So again,
and our engineers in the process of putting something together for Mr. Murphy.
Okay, they're very helpful. Again, just to, like I said, since Seneca Woods has gotten in, everything has changed. So in the 8 years we've been there, we've pumped twice at a 30-day period. So I pump, constant pumping down to the curb, and in 30 days the pumps would stop. It's been going non-stop since Christmas.
Is your sump pump we're talking about, or your sewage pump?
Sump pump.
Sump pump, okay.
Yeah, I got 2 pumps running. Thank God I did a new French drain last year and put a second sump pump down. But my neighbors actually here between our yards, just a soggy mess all the time. The way it was, my house originally built low, everybody else was built high. So again, that's passed, but it's just crazy. So I thought it was a township.
You have a drainage easement between you two. I believe if you're on
We
the
get
left of.
We get right away, he gets right away, and you guys get it, but you can't get back there because.
You get back there partially because of plantings and partially because of the condition of the.
How far down Sleepy Hollow from?
We're down the bottom. What's that?
How far down from Effort Lakes Road is it, your property? Yeah, off of Effort Lakes Road on Sleepy Hollow.
They're in the very back section.
49.
Yeah, we're the bottom section.
Backside.
We back up right next to the new Seneca Woods.
Okay.
They're right behind us.
But again, like I said, everything's changed since the county, so it's been, record rainfall, whatever it might be, still something's not right, so don't know what the answer is. Maintain it, dig it deeper, build a second one out there, drain it further, or jack the house up and go higher, but not doing that.
And you're the neighbor, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Or if you could, sir, if you could
Sure.
just come up.
Yes.
Announce who you are and we'll have it for the record.
So my name is Jack Cronenberger, 51 Sleepy Hollow Drive. And as Joe had mentioned to you guys, it's a big problem between the houses. Until we finally got it vented out to the street and into the sewer system, and the backyards were just filling with water. Because you had to pump out the basement, I couldn't expect them not to. But of course, just by the gravity of it, it all comes in my backyard. So now that we've got it piped into the sewer system, into the drainage system in the street, it's helped. But there's still overflow and there's still water in between the yards. As Joe said, initially when it was engineered, someone made a mistake when they built his house, because I think it's in the water table, it must be, because the water rises. I've never had my sump pump come on, we're 4 feet higher, every other house is 4 foot higher than his. So they corrected the problem once they realized there was a problem with his house. But unfortunately for Joe, and for me being a neighbor, there's that problem. Then we have runoff from our house that we can't stop either. The water runs off my driveway into the lower area too next to Joe, so between the two it's kind of a swampy situation. What can be done about it, I don't know, and I don't know whose responsibility it is, if anybody. But we're just here to let you know what's going on there.
How about mosquito mains? Is
Oh,
that
the
township
mosquitoes,
or is
yeah,
that county?
mosquitoes. Yeah, how do we do, who do we talk about the mosquitoes? Because it's
We'll
really
talk to the
bad.
county mosquito commission.
Yeah.
I also will mention it to them.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
Those retention basins, though, that we're talking about are part of the,
They're part of the original subdivision, and in the original subdivision, the commercial business out front accept the responsibility for all three of them.
As a condition of
As a
major subdivision.
As a condition of the major subdivision. I'm not sure Mr. Aristone ever explained that to Mr. Murphy.
I don't want to be there for that kind
Yeah.
of news.
Yeah, I believe it. My buddy's friend. We thought it wrong for you. So thank you for hearing us.
You're welcome.
You're the first to know that, I'm not sure Mr. Murphy knows it yet.
I think it's I'll let you tell.
So Doug,
Thank you.
Murphy's is responsible for maintaining the 3 catch basins?
The original subdivision, when it was presented by Mr. Aristone, the commercial business out front was maintaining the one that's next to it. They have a direct 20-foot wide property ownership to the second one, and because they're all connected between the swamp and the next basin, they have 1, 2, and 3, or A, B, and C, or however they put them in the.
So can we communicate to Mr. Murphy that he has a responsibility?
Dan's picked up that and is preparing a letter from Mr. Murphy.
Can Dan look at them and see if they're being maintained? Maybe he is maintaining them, or have you looked at them?
I'm sure he is maintaining one up, constantly maintains one up by that. To be honest, Mr. Murphy, they probably have not kept the 20-foot right-of-way between, that he has access to, open. I'm going to assume the property owners at the end of Jessica Court have fenced to what they think is their line, not what.
And they
not-
fenced his right-of-way?
They fenced his right-of-way
Because
across.
they put a pool in, I think, back there.
That may be an
Yeah,
issue if they.
I think that right away, I think there's a pool off to the left and you're looking at the houses. That's a question actually, how would Murphy send somebody in to get behind our house?
Because once again,
Across the easement that's between you two.
right.
That goes like
The
this.
problem of that easement, and it's it was Orleans, my driveway's paved in that deep, and it's like this, I don't know how anybody get back there without going through your front yard, which I
My tractor has enough.
I volunteer for them.
So our engineer's going to look at it, and our
Yeah.
administrator will get back to you.
Okay, great, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of motion to adjourn.
You got it.
All in favor?
second.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks.
Kidding.
Mr. Arston?
I'll see those.
Depends on my in-laws.
See if it's somebody.
No,
You want me to sign somewhere?
He took it with him.
You signed them?
Yes, Bishop. They're on your desk.
Oh, good. I sent him down with him, so.
My God, look at that.
I thought he could kill two birds with one stone. Thank you, Mayor.
What do you do with his sons? I have no idea.
It ended up farming them. Like that.
You like it? It's not really warm around me, but it was better than all the sleeves.
Yeah.
Penny even ironed it. She says it was all wrinkled. She goes, you can't do anything like that.
Long memory there, my friend. That kind of thing you don't forget.
Interesting question. You asked about Miranda?
Well, on frost nights, you have a lot of time to think. On frost night, you have a lot of time to think. And you know, this has all been playing through my mind for a long time. I wonder if this would work. What happens if this don't happen? That's kind of how I took things. And just trying to think, what can we do to get it over the wall? What can we do?
See the answers to those questions.
Sounds like it's a good topic, so.
I think it's an excellent topic.
Stevie.
Ferris Industries.
Okay, on the fix it for.
Yeah. You with Ferris Industries back then?
Yeah. Yep. Cliff's brother, what was his name?
His first name first?
No, his brother was Cliff on the Yamaha dealership before he sold to Danny Trumbull.
Right, right.
And he was the brother who worked for